By the way, by the way, if you would like an address that you could send a card of support to Art, I'll be pleased to give that to you if you um, would like that. I'm going to go with a full, oh, I can't even reach it. We'll just keep it the way it is. Psalm 19, verse 14 says some very important things in a very short verse. Um, Preachers, priests, rabbis, imams, no doubt, have all used these words from the Psalms, and they read this way: May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, Lord, my rock and my salvation. There's an ancient adage that passed through most of the English settlements and into the United States for so many years. And I remember as a young child, not only being told this adage, but also I was encouraged to believe it. And my brother heard it, my sister heard it. I've used it actually with our children as well. And the adage goes this way: um, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Now, that worked for us because we had really wonderful parents who were there for us all the time. And so when words were hurting, we could come and talk with them, and we had a safe place to go to get that support and nurturing. But I think about children who are put down and taunted in school and who have no one to speak to, or take it inside themselves and don't seek some help. I think of the teenage girl or boy on their cell phone being cyberbullying, or the woman physically and emotionally oppressed by an abusive partner or husband. I think of the person who's been tricked as a grandparent into sending money to someone who claimed that they were their child on the telephone, and the voice sounded just like their child, their daughter, their granddaughter, their grandson, and away went some money, and then oftentimes away went some resources. I think of the person who is a troubled person, who's struggling emotionally, who's taunted and accused of being the source of all the problems that we see both in our communities as well as in our nation and around the world. Is this helpful to them to say, words will never hurt me, when in fact they do hurt them, and they hurt them dearly and deeply? I think of the person who is experiencing taunting and abuse because they have an alternate sexual identity, or the person of a different faith commitment who happens to be Jewish or who happens to be Islam, or of a different tradition within the Christian community. We tend to be unkind to folks who are different than us, and we use words both privately as well as before them and in front of them that are painful and hurtful. So it makes no sense to say to them that words don't hurt them. People who are lied to by manipulative promises, by schemes, by scams, by otherwise trusted people. Words help to shape confidence. Words help to heal. They help to offer hope, encouragement, healthy decision making, and actions. And on the contrary, words can contribute to burning holes in one's self-esteem, contribute to a sense of hopelessness, discount a person's value and worth, and decreases their sense of worth by their particular racial background or identity. They increase one's lack of trust, a sense of belonging to a community, or to a marriage, or to a family, or to a nation, or to a church. Words of kindness followed by acts of abuse, words of promise that prove to be hollow and nothing more than lies, words that seek trust that are soon witnessed by meaningless and used to cover moral and ethical emptiness. They cut deeply into the fiber of one's soul. A passage in Proverbs 10 sheds light on this matter. The proverb spoken by, we believe, a very wise person, Solomon, who says, "The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. The mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up conflict." The term righteous is intentional. It means those who follow the law, that is to say, the law of Yahweh, the law of God. Indeed, it's demonstrated by integrity, by honesty, and by charity. And so it's reasonable to assume that Proverbs encourage people to be thoughtful about their words, mindful of what those words meant, and then to make sure that their lives match the words of kindness, of gentleness, of compassion that they use. Paul, who we know started any number of small communities of faith, one that he started in Philippi was of great concern to him because they were struggling. And so he sent a letter. It happened that Timothy was there and also giving support to the new and growing and confused sometimes community of faith. And so he said this, in conclusion, "My brothers and sisters, fill your minds with those things that are good and deserve praise, things that are true, noble, right, pure, filled with love, and honorable. Put into practice what you learned and received from me, from my words and my deeds." Is it not reasonable that it is expected that pledges and promises will be demonstrated by ethical and moral behavior? We make those pledges and promises. We do that when we take a loan out, when we make a commitment to a contract, when we make a commitment in a marriage and a relationship, or just basic friendships, which we trust will be honored by our ethical and moral behavior. If one identifies oneself as religious, as a Christian, for instance, or as a Muslim, or as a Jew, if one claims that, and then as a follower of Jesus, we who are Christian, and so be recognized as a Christian, then ethical and moral thoughts, ethical and moral words, and ethical and moral actions are not only expected, but they are so essential to our growing faith and to the way in which the church is understood and seen by those who are wondering whether they too should become part of this community, part of this gathering. Indeed, words shape our thoughts. They shape our dreams, our ideas, our emotions, those emotions which we shared with those whom we are in relationship with. They are words that shape the private confessions we make during meditation and prayer. Words shape the plans we have for the day or for the month or for the year or for the future. They shape the description of the memories that invite us to smile or to tear up. Words also shape our bitterness, our doubt, our anger, our fear, a design for retribution or getting even. These words begin to shape one's potential acts of kindness, of generosity, of service. They shape the description of the accomplishments we make. They share also an awareness of how we understand compassion and that compassion in action, fulfilling relationships. And words also describe our withdrawal from one another. They describe our acting out, our arguments, our separation from each other. They describe our impatience and our hostility on the cell phone or on the highway. Words describe the striking of a child or your spouse or another person. They describe the words we use when we shout in anger, and they describe the verbalization of our denigration and the slurs that we make toward one another. Words shape wonderfully poetry and protest, awe and anger, devotion and debate, hope and humiliation, faith and frustration. Words indeed shape who we are as we're heard and as we've been seen. I recently saw a quote from Margaret Mead, and I want to share the wonderful words of her comment, which describes something powerful about her understanding of what makes a civilization begin. A student asked her, when does a civilization begin? And she said to him, and no doubt the student was thinking, oh, he'll talk about the fire, she'll talk about fish hooks, or she'll talk about clay pots, or grinding stones, or flint stones. No, she said the first sign of civilization in an ancient culture was a broken femur. My granddaughter just had a broken femur back in the fall as she was a year ago, actually, anticipating the last run on the slope. Hit a bump, went up, hit another bump, and broke her femur. Indeed, she says a femur is an indication of the beginning of civilization. And then she went on to say, the animal kingdom, when that animal breaks its leg, they die. You cannot run from danger. You cannot get to the river for a drink. You can hunt for food. You are meat for the prowling beasts. No animal survives a broken leg long enough for the bone to heal in the wilderness or in the forest. A broken femur that has healed is evidence that someone had taken time to stay with the one who fell, had bound up the wound, had carried the person to safety, had tended the person through recovery. Helping someone else through difficulty is where civilization starts. We are at our best when we serve one another. And then she ends the comment by saying, be civilized. Well, words are so crucial and they are so important to us. They describe our faith. They describe our questions, and they describe our discoveries, and they describe the wonder that we have experienced from a loving and caring and compassionate understanding of our God. They describe what we know about as we share words about Jesus. Julie described a faith that was put to song and to melody. They describe our understanding of the history of the church and Christianity all through its ages. They describe who we are as a people in faith and of faith. They describe our compassion. They describe our reaching out. They describe our giving. They describe our sensitivity toward those who are strangers and who are lost and seeking help and longing to be included and loved. They describe who we are. So use our words carefully, because they are heard in our heads and with one another. We are a people in and of faith, and our faith is so wonderfully described by our words. God bless our words. And we say once again, as the psalmist said, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in God's sight, our rock and our salvation. Amen.